Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Point Forward podcast, Milwaukee Bucks chatter from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. My name is JR Radcliffe, joined by my colleague Jim Owczarski. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and Giannis Antetokounmpo is still a member of the Milwaukee Bucks. He's not leaving, according to his Instagram post. I'm not leaving. I love that meme, by the way. It's a good pull. 2013 movie, 5 Academy Award nominations for Wolf of Wall Street. You might be surprised to know. Jim, I wanted to discuss the outcome here. The Bucks made some minor moves, which we will discuss, of course. The big one, though, is that the big guy is still here, and it seems like we knew that's where it was headed. Certainly, your reporting in your conversation with him led me to believe that he was probably staying put, at least for now. I want to talk about some of the national reporting. Shams Charania, we're going to mention you on this podcast. But just in general, right off the bat, I'm guessing at some point, and maybe this was always the case for you, at some point you found it highly unlikely that he was going to be traded before the deadline. Is that something, I mean, have you been pretty consistent feeling that way? Like from the word go, did you feel like this deadline, it just never made sense that the Bucks were actually going to move on from Giannis at this point in his career and in the season?
Yeah, it just never made it never made any sense. Like, I think the thing that changed was the Bucks actively listening.
Mm-hmm.
I think up until this window, it was get a call and thanks, but no thanks, and kind of move on. And so once you start actively listening, I think that generated the hysteria, for lack of a better word, around the league. Like, oh my God, they're not just hanging up on me. Right. But then as more reporting from some of these other cities came out, it was I think the Warriors, the Bucks never responded or didn't say what they wanted. And it was the Timberwolves saying, well, the Bucks weren't serious. And like, I don't know what that means. But as like the local reporting from these other cities came out, it was like, well, maybe John picked up the phone and maybe he listened, but it wasn't like a conversation. And so maybe anything more than fact finding or fact gathering, which again would still be different than the past. But yeah, it half the league couldn't be involved, JR. Like if you're the Bucks and you're like, okay, let's say, okay, this season's a disaster. We have gotten worse each of the last 5 years. Like I've always said this on this podcast with you, like a separation at that point would make sense for both parties, right? Like we have tried for 5 years and we are getting worse. I'm done. That would make sense. And so maybe it was like, wow, we are so bad. We are headed toward the lottery. Let's fact find. That's all like, okay. However, at the trade deadline in season, half the league couldn't get involved, JR. Like, as this was going on, literally half the teams were in the tax. Several teams were in an apron. The Cavaliers were in the second apron, and everyone's trying like heck to get out of those situations. And so adding a $60 million player into all of that, like it didn't make basketball sense. And it just never seemed to be conveyed to the public. It's not fun. It's not sexy. That is not a great podcast topic. It's not a great 2.5-minute television segment. So yeah, it's pro sports. Anything's possible. So there's never a non-zero chance of anything. But yeah, there was nothing locally that I knew, had heard, could confirm, however you want to phrase it, that made me think this was happening at all. I think I've been pretty consistent about that. I think our reporting's been pretty consistent about that. And now we'll just be able to take a minute to, when's the lottery? Mid-May, JR?
Uh-huh.
I think we got till mid-May before, places and things want to kick up again on what its future's about.
Yeah, we get a very brief reprieve before things get going. And the lottery is going to be interesting for Bucks fans, I think, for the first time in, 10
Could
years.
be.
We'll see, though. I'm not sure of that. I do want to talk about that, too. as we look toward that period of time when he is going to be again part of the rumor mill, and we get into that offseason, can you put a finer point on like why the offseason is I mean, I guess it's pretty easy to say, well, a bunch of guys are going to get off the books and teams are just going to have more money to spend. But I don't know if it's quite that simple even, because a lot of teams still don't have money to spend. So why the offseason makes more sense, and kind of what would you put the odds at? Like, is it 50-50 that he gets traded this offseason? I mean, obviously some of that is contingent on what the Bucks do in terms of how they build their roster, how they convince Giannis that this is a place to stay. But I mean, do you expect there's going to be a lot of, like, to what degree do you think the Bucks are going to entertain doing this again in just a few months?
I think, look, if you actively listen now, I don't know exactly why you wouldn't actively listen later, to this point that I made. Like, half the teams couldn't get involved. So why not? I mean, like, if you've already done half the homework assignment, like, why not like do all of it? So I think that's something to look forward to, if you're John Horst, and just kind of see what's, what else could be out there. And so, like, the offseason matters because, yes, more players come off the books elsewhere, but to your point, there isn't a ton of currently cap space. Like, teams are gearing up for it. What does that mean? I don't know. I mean, there aren't a ton of free agents. So you're like a guy like Giannis, you're trading contracts to match, maybe. You also need contracts because the Bucks also need to field a team, right? Like, I can't imagine, they would totally tear it all down. I like, that doesn't really work in this city, in terms of selling tickets and having people fill the building and buy things. So yeah, that just makes sense, right? Like, okay, the lottery happens, everyone knows where they're picking, and then the draft is in June, and then teams will have X amount of picks open up. Like, the Bucks are one of them. The Bucks can trade their 26 pick on draft night. They can trade their 33 pick on draft night. Other teams are like that as well. So that's why the offseason matters in that way. You can sign and trade, I mean, there's just way more options for stuff. But I don't now, to the broader question, like, the issue, like, when Giannis's biggest thing to me in that interview, outside of not wanting to leave, was our ownership and I still on the same page. Mm-hmm. And he would not speak for them. He was like, we have our conversations. I'm not going to say what they have said, but I don't know what their goal is. So to me, he kind of said what they've said or haven't said, right? So if the goal for ownership, which is, again, JR, as I've said this, actions over words, Wes Edens and Jimmy Haslam have never not tried to win. So if that's the case, then they're going to give John Horst money and draft picks to continue to try to maximize Giannis's prime. And that's what we heard 4 months ago, 5 months ago, 9 months ago. And if that's the case, then, maybe teams call them with offers, and maybe they'll say, that's nice, but we're not interested. We're interested in your all-star. How about send us that guy, right? Instead of us sending you yours. And maybe that flips the conversation. So yeah, I think the summer is important for that way. And what I don't mean to be flip about the rumor mill, but I did outline this in Giannis's own words at jsonline.com, JR, of like why we're going to hear this again. And it's because, like, he can't help himself. Like, in May, we're going to hear Giannis is evaluating his future. Do his goals align with the Bucks? We're going to wait to see. So what are we going to hear? We're going to wait to see what the lottery says. What do the Bucks pick? Oh, the Bucks got the second pick in the draft. And what does Giannis think about that? Right? Or the Bucks got the 10th pick in the draft. What does Giannis think about that? and then we're going to get to June, and that's the actual draft. And then, free agency a week later. And the reason this is kind of crazy is because he's not eligible to sign anything till October. So almost every other free agent or free agent to be can extend in July, JR. I think Steph's in August. But Steph is clearly not going anywhere. So most of these extensions can be done in July. And Giannis is October. So he can't do anything. He literally cannot do anything. The Bucks literally cannot do anything till October. So you're just going to deal with like, well, is he going to extend? Is he not going to extend? The Bucks don't know. Giannis won't commit. And we're going to hear it. But he says it. He says it all the time. It's in that story. He's like, all the reports are true, guys. Every summer, this is what I do. You know, he finally he's like, I ask out every summer. and it was sort of a joke, but it wasn't. Like Giannis speaks truth, but he will deflate it a little bit with humor and some, you know, and yeah, like you can report that however you want. Like he's ready, he's looking around, and he's like, yeah, I play in the NBA. What is it like to play with LeBron? What would it be like to play with Kobe? What would it be like? So yeah, if you hear, well, Giannis is looking at playing with player A or B, like, yeah. So he's like, I think finally, JR, he just decided to get rid of the sourcing and the pretense and just lay it out there that his summers are like that. He's in Greece looking around, right? And I think that's relatable. And I think he peeled back those layers or opened the curtains, however you want to phrase it, of like what that's actually like. Doesn't mean we're not going to hear it, because we are. There's programming to build around for these things. But hopefully everyone will read that stuff and understand it's coming, but why it's going to happen. And I think if you're a Bucks fan, it's just, you know, you just got to wait through the mechanics of lottery, draft, free agency, and then, you know, well, is Giannis going to commit? Well, he can't. He cannot until October. So then you just got to sit on it. Was it enough? Was it enough from July, August, September? Because there's nothing they can do about it. And that's just is what it is. It sucks to say, but that phrase is very true. It is what it is.
I want to talk a little more about the coverage, not yours, the national voices. And before I get a little critical, which I plan to do, there's also one thing that kind of is sticking out with me, and it goes back to even that Instagram post that Giannis posted after the trade deadline. That's very defiant meme from Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving. You know, I don't want to come to the defense of Shams or anybody else who's been so eagerly, you know, buzzing about Giannis going somewhere else for 5 years now. Like it's been constant.
It's longer. 2017.
I'm being charitable.
Shout out to Bucks Reddit. 2017.
I mean, while everyone else, I'm going to set up a straw man real quickly, but like same guys who are like, people shouldn't be chasing rings. They should want to stay with one organization. You know, what is Kevin Durant doing? Always chasing greatness. But Giannis, we should try to get Giannis out of Milwaukee. Again, that might be a straw man. I acknowledge that. But here's the thing that's still sticking out to me. Yes, okay, Giannis is defiantly staying, he, as he said to you, and then went on to say to Eric Name of The Athletic, you know, how much the city means to him in terms that really, I think, really starkly paint how much he loves Milwaukee and how much he would like to stay here and finish his career here. But Shams isn't creating this out of thin air. The other guys who cover this aren't creating this out of thin air. Someone from Giannis's team is suggesting that this is a possibility, maybe even a strong possibility. When Shams writes, Giannis is ready for a new home, that didn't come out of thin air. So yes, there is this defiance and this is where I want to stay, but also like, I also don't want to forget that like the bus is not necessarily being driven by these reporters. It's being driven by the intel that they're getting. Now they can paint it however they want.
Well, I'll disagree with you a little bit there. I mean,
all right,
they are driving a lot of it.
Okay.
It's like we all get information. It's just what do you do with it? And so like I have information, but I don't, like, we're not on this pod saying certain things. You know what I mean? So I'll disagree with you there.
Okay.
That, like,
well, that's great. I await your view on that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, but I get what you're right. Like there's no fabrication. And that's the thing. Like, and that's sort of what emboldened a lot of times some of this reporting was because Giannis came out on September. It said, the reports are always true, guys. So it validates the summer reporting, right? And then after the Knicks thing, it was like, guys, what'd I tell you? All the reporting is true. So, like, it validates. And so you're right. Like, there are sources who say these things. There are sometimes sources who tell you things not for you to necessarily go public with it then or at all. There are sometimes sources tell you things to go public. And those motivations and what, I don't know, like me as a journalist, it's my job to ferret that out and decide what's relevant, what's not, what's an agenda, what's not. I've had like JR, I'll tell a story. I've had in the NFL, I've had players and agents, want to push an agenda, want to get something out for a reason. And me as the gatekeeper of that information, I'm like, well, like what's the news here? Like I have to decipher that. Is it not true? Like the your truth thing, which that's a whole other podcast, but like that's their truth. But what's the purpose of this? What is this news? Is it, what is this? That's my job. Do I always make the right decision? Maybe not. But yeah, so I do think, like, you're right. It's coming from somewhere, and then it's, the drive. I mean, it is driving, Jared. Like, it was 9 months of just like, what are we doing here? And it look, man, I can't, I don't know that place or what the motivations are, what the requirements are. I mean, I know the end result. And the end result was Giannis Antetokounmpo is a Milwaukee Buck, and it wants to be, and if the team wants him to be, he's going to be here, which counters everything we've heard for years again. And, I've never seen an organization, a player, and a coach dunk on someone specifically like the Bucks and Doc Rivers and Giannis and his brother have. I've never seen that. So that was new to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, man, that whole thing was very, very strange. And I can imagine, I know why Bucks fans are exhausted, right?
Yeah, well, it's strange because I don't assume that there's a contentious relationship between the Antetokounmpo camp and Shams. I don't assume it's friendly, but it's also like, I don't think they're as frustrated, or I wouldn't imagine they're as frustrated as Bucks fans are by the constant recycling of it. And maybe I'm wrong about that. I do want to take my own opportunity to dunk on Shams. I mean, Quick Trip is dunking on Shams. Quick Trip is making tweets, which, by the way, their social media presence is incredible. Love Quick Trip. They've won me over. I wasn't a Quick Trip guy until like 3 years ago. My son actually was like big into their food offerings. And I'm like, it's a gas station. How great can it be? I was wrong. This place is a delight. I enjoy Quick Trip very much. And I think their socials maybe won me over, maybe subconsciously. I think I bit into the marketing a little bit, I have to admit. Back to Shams. The preoccupation sucks, man. And I do say that as somebody who's just following the Bucks. I'll get to my question about that in a second, but like, it's just this preoccupation with moving him. There are a lot of stars on teams who are not doing great. You don't hear, and sometimes, yes, it has to do with the fact that Giannis entertains this, but nobody is trying to move Jokic off the Nuggets. Nobody's been trying to get Kawhi Leonard out of Los Angeles, Anthony Edwards out of Minnesota when they're not playing great. I mean, it's just like, it just feels so singular. And it might be because we're paying attention to that and not coverage of other guys, but it feels so singular over the last 10 years that the national media, and specifically ESPN, with Brian Windhorst and Stephen A. Smith and all their other guys, are trying to get Giannis to move on. Now, I want to know what you think. Is there an actual harmful element to that? Because it's annoying. Sure, it's annoying. But maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just an annoyance and it doesn't really matter. And the Bucks front office isn't responding to it in any way, shape, or form. It's not influencing anything or changing anything. Maybe the player doesn't feel it's influencing anything or changing anything. But is there a point where the coverage is so constant that it does meddle a little bit? Do you think? Like maybe it tells a player, wow, like everyone thinks I should move on. I mean, maybe I should. I'm not even saying this specifically to Giannis, but it's hard to tell when you're so annoyed by something if that thing really matters. Maybe it doesn't matter one iota, and maybe it does have a tangible effect. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, because a national presence does matter. And the reason I know this is because, covering the NFL for as long as I did, many owners don't live in the cities that they own a team in. The sports team for many are the toy, right? Like they've got other businesses, and the sports are the fun thing. Most owners are not lifelong sports people. They don't know anybody in the business. Like they're learning on the fly, and it's, and where I'm going with that is a lot of time, and I know this from the NFL, like a lot of times owners will read or see coverage and, oh, that's a smart coach, or these are the hot coaches. This is the hot coaching list. This is the up and coming GM list. They see that stuff, and it's like, that guy, I want that person. Let's hire this person. Well, I don't really know them, so let's hire this ex-GM or ex-president to run a search, right? And so, I know that for a fact. The Bucks owners aren't in Milwaukee. So are they reading the Journal Sentinel or watching or streaming, the local cable network on their app for local news? I don't know, maybe. But if the national thing is ESPN on television, because I don't think Amazon and NBC this year have really gotten involved in this stuff. At least I haven't seen it to the degree. But like the other national written outlets and podcasts, it's a lot. And maybe, you can be influenced or wonder, like, am I missing something? Like, I think our guy's great and we're going to win, but like, man, look at all these people who are ex-players or ex-coaches or, opinion makers that I believe, like, of course it can have an effect. I've seen it, definitely NFL. I mean, again, I don't know in the NBA, they don't really talk about up and coming NBA coaches like they do in NFL. It's such a different ecosystem, but like, that stuff's there. It's for sure. And so, I did it affect the Bucks at all? I don't know. I mean, only Wes Edens could answer that. He's the governor and the final say on all basketball decisions. So, I don't know, but like it definitely does. And I think it does wear on people, like for Bucks fans.
Oh,
sure, JR. It's like, oh my God, like, is this over? And there is an element of, they should just trade him so we can be done with this. You know what I mean? Like, so it does wear on, for sure. It's just campaigns and campaigns and campaigns of stuff does wear on you. Like it's exhausting. And so how do you parse through? And it's like a lot of things in our current media ecosystem. Like, how do you parse through this stuff? What should I take seriously? What is just content? What is entertainment? What's that's the hardest part. And we're all human. We're all susceptible to it. So why wouldn't decision makers be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, no one is making up stuff out of whole cloth. So, wherever it comes from, it's coming from somewhere. So it stands to reason, well, what's the root cause of that? How should I take this? I will say, I do think going forward, maybe some grains of salt should also be added to the word salad in the mix that's coming out, right? And just
100%.
Like, okay, let's really parse through what's what.
Well, you said this, how odd you thought it was that there were suddenly these suitors that were going to maybe be ideal destinations for Giannis. It's like, John Horst, think back to the big moves he's made. And you don't have to think of even very many. Damian Lillard or Drew Holiday. Nobody had any idea those deals were coming until the second they happened. this is not a leaky front office. They don't leak out details. So if those details are coming in, they're not coming from the Bucks, most likely. And so you have to hold everything up with a grain of salt, because the Bucks like to, they like to work in the dark, and then they pull the trigger when they're ready to do so. I also love how after it became clear that the Bucks were not going to trade Giannis, the ESPN had that story so far down on their website, like you had to scroll forever to see this little nugget. Oh, by the way, they're not going to trade Giannis anymore. All that reporting we've been doing, all that, oh, he's ready for a new home and all that. You know what? Forget that. Throw that out the window. It's like the 50th item on their website versus, all kinds of other NBA trade deadline stuff on top. And I understand like non-news is not as exciting as news, but
right.
This is just ESPN's way of being like, well, we move on. We're gonna ignore the fact that there was all kinds of local reporting from you or Eric Name that sort of indicated where this was going, and we're gonna ignore just everything we said and just oh yeah, I guess that didn't happen. Bummer. We'll revisit in May. That's what they're gonna say. Oh, it makes me so angry sometimes. Like, I mean, I say this as somebody who's not even like a diehard, like I can't imagine what like the diehard Bucks fans are thinking. This is just somebody who observes a lot of media, and it's like, this is so clumsy. This is just not how it's being thought of locally. And yet they just keep saying it louder and louder until until it doesn't come true and they bury it on their website. We expect Giannis back from his calf injury sometime in early March, I presume. And
that's the next great debate now, though, JR. If you didn't notice,
that's where I'm coming from.
Quick pivot to
should he play?
Should he play? And that was never a question. Giannis said himself, he's like, hopefully when I come back, we're in the play-in or in the playoffs. They're not shutting him down. He is not playing. The only question is just, do they let him the full runway to be healed? And I think that's what they do this time, because he can't make all NBA. He can't win any awards. That was a big part of him coming back when he did with the minutes. So I do think JR, March is when we're going to see him, but he will be back. Yes.
Well, and they're only 2 games out from the last play-in spot. And even though Charlotte has won 8 games in a row for the first time since I was in high school, they're still just a couple games ahead of the Bucks. Like, as bad as it has been, they are within reach of a play-in spot. Now, Jim, I struggle with, like, isn't it just logical to, like, not tank, but do very little to try and win basketball games, because the odds are the best thing you're going to do is get into the play-in. Whereas if you just, stay where you're at, which is 8 to 10 games below 500, you're going to be in the lottery and have a really good chance at a significant pick here in the year 2026. It does hinge on the Pelicans and the luck of the lottery, but like, why wouldn't the Bucks be eager for that? Because there's just such a ceiling to what they can do this year. But I you've said this before, like, Giannis is going to play. You've never wavered off that. Once he's healthy, he is going to be going full bore. And I guess that's just what they're going to do. I see the trade deadline happened. It's not like they made moves that made this team markedly better or anything. Although I don't know. We'll talk about those moves in a second. So I guess the logic says one thing, but the reality is going to say another. That's tough.
I think well, first of all, the Bucks did try to upgrade, maybe buy low on some stuff, and it just didn't happen, right? So they're effectively the same team, and they're still hurt. Like, as we record this, Kyle Kuzma now suffered a calf injury. And so I think it's interesting. What it is they're just going to play this out. And I think the hard evaluation will come in March. Not that Giannis isn't going to play, but let's say they're in the play-in. Like, whatever the results are, whatever the record is, it doesn't matter. Let's just say they're in the play-in when he comes back. Well, guess what? They're gonna make the play-in then. If not, depending what the records are, like, make the playoffs as the 6th seed, and that'll just play itself out. If they're currently 10 games under 500 without Giannis after a couple wins, JR. If they drop to 20 games under 500 without Giannis, like, they lose out through February, I think it's just going to be what it is. Like, I don't think they have to do anything, try anything. They're either going to win or they're not. And the math says, and I broke this down with Giannis, and he said, he's like, this is part of his urgency is, he's got 5 years of prime basketball in his opinion. This year appears sort of lost. He's like, are we going to make the playoffs? As he asked me, and I said, well, the math is difficult on that. And he's like, yeah, math's difficult on it, right? He's like, even with me. So I think they're just going to play it out. And then maybe at the very end of the year, let's say there's the last five games of the season.
Yeah.
And Giannis has played. He's healthy. Him and his brothers have made history. We've got the feel good thing at the end of the year to do. Do they shut it down to like do the Dallas tank, the top Sixers tank to make sure I think there'll be a conversation at the end of the season if that's the case. But if they somehow, JR, are in the play-in picture, they're gonna do the thing. And whatever. Now, play-in teams are still lottery teams.
That's right. Yeah.
If they lose the first play-in game or they lose the second play-in game, they're still a lottery team.
Sure.
Dallas, they could still go from 12-1 or whatever, right?
So, but unlikely. But it has happened. So yes.
Right. And so, but they're not, because that's part of this. If you're keeping him, you can't try to lose.
No.
That defeats the whole purpose of keeping him, because then he'll be like, what do we do? And then it turns into a thing. Right.
Unless you argue it's better for our team to win next year if we've got a top 5 guy, in the draft.
And so you can't try to lose with Giannis and then in 3 months or in 2 months say, well, we tried to lose then, but we're not going to try to lose now. Trust. That's not going to work. Either you're in or you're out. And so they're, if they're in, they're not going to try to lose. They might just lose anyway. So, so that JR, I think, is I think they understand. They're not dummies. John's not a dummy. He understands what's potentially in play. But a lot of this is out of their control. The Pelicans had a 5-game winning streak this year, JR. What if the Pelicans win 7 of their last 10? They're trying to win. They don't have a pick. What, right? And so
right. You're right.
The Bucks don't control this. So I think they're just going to play and see what happens. And then I'll just allow that if you get to the last week of the season and there's some wiggle room, maybe.
Pete Nance, 40 minutes.
Let's look at that. So that's kind of where they're at with I think how they're going to play this out the next few months.
Yeah. I made the joke there, Pete Nance, 40 minutes, but I might want to see it anyway. He might be good.
Kuz is out. So at least today we're going to see Pete for a while.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the moves they did make, which were really, really small. They traded Amir Coffey and Cole Anthony, 2 guys whose names we maybe didn't say at all on this podcast after they were acquired. And, they got back Nigel Hayes-Davis, former Badger player. He was waived. He joins the ranks of Sam Decker and Patrick Baldwin Jr., Wisconsin college players who didn't actually end up playing for the Bucks, even though they were acquired by them in recent years. Bronson Koenig, was he in there somewhere? He wasn't a 2-way guy. He was, I think, just in camp or something.
Yeah, I don't think he ever.
But yeah, never actually suited up. So that didn't happen. But then they traded Nick. I've already forgotten his name. Nick Richards. That's his name.
Nick Richards. Yes.
I don't even feel unjust in forgetting exactly the name there, but they brought back Ousmane Dieng, who was traded 17 times, but most recently of the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's a Frenchman. He was the 11th pick in the draft a few years back when he was still a teenager. He's not a big producer, at least not yet. 6'9" guy who I guess could fit into the rotation somewhere. I don't know if you have a thought of like how they're going to use him and kind of what the upside is there. Again, this is very much around the fringes of the roster. It doesn't feel like it's going to have a dramatic impact, but it looked to me in the Dragon Bender realm from a few years back, a little bit of a lottery ticket, like just see what they got, maybe with a 22-year-old. What do you think?
Yeah, Ousmane is never cracked the rotation with the Thunder. Over these last 4 years, he's never played. His rookie year played about 15 minutes per game. Low volume all the way around. The Thunder, you could say, won a championship last year, but his his rookie year, they were bad, right? So they finished 10th. They were, I shouldn't say bad, it was about 500. They were starting maybe their climb out because the next year they win the West. So drafted into a improving team. But the way I look at Ousmane Dieng actually is how it's pronounced, is lottery ticket, and a little bit like, to use a baseball analogy, when teams would trade or they would acquire a young pitcher from the Atlanta Braves, and on one hand it was like very exciting because, oh, the Braves draft these great young pitchers, and then you'd be like, wait a minute, why are the Braves giving up on this young pitcher? And those guys never really seemed to do anything after they left Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering about that, like if this guy could really play. The Thunder have always let, like, just last year they've got two-way guys or undrafted guys, or like those guys play for the Thunder if they can really play. And Ousmane just never cracked anything there. Doesn't mean he won't. He is just about to turn 23. I think his contract, he could be a restricted free agent, so the Bucks get him in the building, take a look at him, and kind of a cost controlled asset to a degree. Low, maybe he's I would guess, JR, the ceiling would be the next Ryan Rollins, right? Ryan was traded and waived, kind of out there, and the Bucks picked him up, and we've seen what he's become. And maybe Ousmane has that, like his 3-point shooting, low volume, has steadily improved. And I know the Bucks look at shot profile, shot mechanic. And if you are around Giannis and you play with Giannis, you will have your career best 3-point shooting. Like literally it happens every player who plays with Giannis. So maybe they look at Ousmane and say, wow, okay, here's this big wing-ish guy that can shoot around Giannis, like defend. Like I think he's 6'9", 6'10". Don't really know his handle. Don't really know if he's a guy who can defend multiple positions. I guess we're going to find out from Doc Rivers pregame what the kind of initial scouting report is. I mean, so yeah, we'll see, JR. I'm a little skeptical because, again, the Thunder are moving on from him, but they also did draft him and keep him around for 4 years. So maybe there's something there, But yeah, fringy guy. Obviously there's a roster spot now. What are they going to do with that? You mentioned Pete Nance. Pete is playing very well. There's no rush to convert him to a guaranteed deal. He's got, I think there's an overlap of, like, he's allowed to play 50 games. I think there's 52, 53 games left in the season. So at some point at the very end of the year, they'll have to make a decision. Do we, elevate Pete to a standard deal so he can finish the season, give him a little bit of a raise, multi-year, maybe give him, sign him for next year with an option, whatever, going forwards. But there's no rush on that. So I think the Bucks are going to kind of comb the waiver wire, see if there's another sort of waiver claim, interesting guy that they can maybe take a flyer on. Because, yeah, right now, JR, there's no, the buyout market. I mean, Chris Middleton's staying in Dallas as we record this. Cam Thomas, Bucks fans are excited about, but they already got high scoring, high volume guards who are not short. So, I don't really think that's a thing they need. So we'll see, though, like what they do with that last roster spot, if they want to fill it or if they want to hold it and keep it open for maybe Pete Nance down the line or a two-way on another team maybe that they like, that they can offer a full deal to.
I don't know if it's a success rate greater than other teams, but I do feel like John Horst has found some diamonds in the rough. You've got Ryan Rollins, you've got AJ Green, even go back to like Javon Carter. I mean, I guess you could make an argument for Brook Lopez because they used him completely differently than how he was being used. So, I'll give him a little bit of the doubt. Maybe this turns into something. He's had some success stories there. So maybe there's something there. Anything else, Jim, that strikes you? I thought there was part of me through this whole process that was like, what if they zag and just like go get Ja Morant or go get somebody really high profile at the deadline and really like still go for it? That seemed irrational, but there's still just a part of me that thought maybe they do the thing we don't expect them to do. Or get a player that could be here for years after this one, not just for 2026, but that obviously did not materialize. Any last thoughts before I send you away?
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely poked around and tried to buy low, as I said earlier. So it just didn't happen. But no, all I'll say is, first, we always pitch things to say hey, subscribe, whatever. Also, thank you for reading. Thank you for subscribing. A lot of activity, engagement. And what I will say, speaking of those things, at Indeed Brewery. Indeed Brewery.
Oh, yeah.
Next week, the 7th, is it next week or
Feb 17? 9 days from now. That's
we're
not next
there.
week, but we're close.
11, whatever.
11 days. 11 days.
Totally wiped out. 11 days from Kristen Bray. Does a great job. She is hosting the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Insiders event, and it is featuring me on the 17th. So obviously it's open to subscribers. So please subscribe and come in. Also non-subscribers can come in as well. So check out Journal Sentinel, jsonline.com for that. On my socials, I've posted those as well. So grab your ticket. It's free. Definitely come hang out. And I'm sure I've never done it. So I'm fascinated to see what questions or how Kristen sets that up. And I do believe, JR, there's like Q&A opportunities there as well. And, chances to kind of mingle and say hello. So yeah, definitely check that out and come see us at Indeed Brewery.
Yeah, these are really cool. I did one of these once before, hosted one with the Packers guys, Packers reporters. Just a really cool informal setting, hang out, have a frothy beverage, and ask Jim Owczarski some of your questions. Maybe you've got questions that are not being asked on this podcast, and if so, I apologize. But you can speak to him directly, hang out with him. He's got takes. And it's a really cool opportunity. So circle that on your calendar, Feb 17 at Indeed Brewery. All right, Jim, that's going to do it for this edition of the Point Forward podcast. Business as usual. We're going to go back to talking about screen setting and, rotations and, well, the head coach. We might be talking about the head coach. That's still a topic, I suppose. As the season hits the All-Star break here coming up right around Valentine's Day. Con Knipple will be there. Giannis will be there with his brothers coaching Shams in the celebrity game. So there's sure to be some levity, if not probably not any drama, but maybe some levity there.
Yeah, I can almost we're talking about Giannis here. We can almost guarantee there's going to be some levity, some moment that, I mean, it is an ESPN produced event with an ESPN employee.
Yes.
So yes, I would almost guarantee there's going to be something that
for sure
we see.
Yes, Con Knipple will be in the Rising Stars game, and it sounds like the 3-point competition. Could a Wisconsinite win it for the second year in a row? I don't know if Tyler Hero will be healthy enough to defend his title, but he might be. I don't know. He's got some ribs stuff that's kept him out since mid-January, but we'll see. So there's something to watch for, even if there are no Bucks participating in the All-Star break. And then it's home stretch time. After that, we get season comes to its final stages pretty quickly. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Point Forward podcast. We will be back again very soon. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.